Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into the channel. Monday, November 27, 2023, and an interesting story from Puck.News today regarding the harassment case between eBay and Ina and David Steiner. You guys remember that story? If not, I'll link it below. Basically, the Steiners, who produce E-commerce Bites, the blog site for reselling and e-commerce stories, were harassed and stalked by members of eBay's security team and employees, and it went to trial, and a bunch of them went to jail, and you guys know the whole story. I think everybody's pretty up to date on that. If you're not, check out the video below. But Jim Ball, who was one of the employees, part of the global security team, the story has come out that currently right now the Steiners are in a civil trial with eBay, trying to work out damages, what it was worth to them to be stalked. They are contending that the U.S. government, Department of Justice, and I'm going to show you guys the story in a second, is intervening in the case between them and eBay and these defendants because apparently Jim Ball, one of the eBay employees, was formerly working for the CIA and was like a covert security agent. He worked with Joe Biden back in the day. He worked with lots of people in the security industry and did all this stuff. And the Department of Justice, for the first time ever, is trying to silence and stop discovery of, I guess, his past history and what all he's done and his experience in this stuff, so it can't be entered into this court case. And the Steiners are basically saying, yes, that's very, very viable, because they believe, in their opinion, that that is why eBay partially, or at least mostly, hired him to work on eBay's team, because of his ability and his past and his history of dealing with covert things quietly and making things happen like they tried to do with the Steiners, and he just had a ragtag bunch of clown employees who couldn't get it right and left a trail of receipts of what they were doing. But this is what the Steiners are saying, is that his history is very important to this case and to the damages, to show that eBay hired him in an attempt, maybe not quite at that time, but at some point, to use his skills to silence them. Let me take you over to Puck.com, and I saw this story first from Pure Hustle Podcast. I saw a couple of people post it, but I think they were first, so thank you to them for bringing it to my attention, and Puck.News for putting out the story. Let's go over and check it out. All right, so this is the story they put out just last week about this guy's past, Jim Ball, and they called it a spy in Silicon Valley, which is pretty appropriate, I think, for the story. So it says Jim Ball, the former CIA operative who's convicted of orchestrating a bizarre scheme to silence two eBay critics, blames the company for its toxic culture. He says he was still working as a spy. Now the Justice Department is claiming that Ball's explosive allegations are classified, meaning the Steiners can't use it during their trial against eBay for civil damages. So has the Central Intelligence Agency actually infiltrated corporate America? That's the question they're asking, and even enlisted executives for espionage. That's crazy. It would appear so, or at least judging by the Justice Department's unusual intervention in a civil case brought by a pair of married journalists who were harassed by eBay executives, including Jim Ball, who was a former CIA operative whose security firm once contracted with the likes of Apple, Amazon, and even the Oscars, where he provided protection detail for Joe Biden at the 2016 show. So this guy has a huge history of doing security and doing contract stuff for big firms and companies and political people. The harassment case was undoubtedly one of the most bizarre episodes in recent Silicon Valley history. We all know that. We all saw it happen. I reported on it, did quite a few stories about David and Ina Steiner. In fact, I was interviewed by a company who does films for like streaming services, who actually put a documentary out about it, all that sort of stuff. So the situation, which we all know rapidly escalated with all their harassment, we know that story. I'm going to scroll down here. As it turns out, the Steiners, who made an enemy of eBay because they were making unflattering stories about Devin Wenig and about eBay and about all this stuff, 7 members of eBay's Global Intelligence Center, including Ball, faced prosecution on charges of conspiracy to commit cyber stalking and tampering with witnesses. That's what they were charged with. In fact, Ball was sentenced in September of 2022, about a year ago, to nearly 5 years in prison. Some of the other people, I think, got like 10 months and 3 years. And so that was covered by the New York Times, 60 Minutes, all that stuff. It seems nobody's been paying attention to the recent legal developments, starting with an explosive letter that Ball wrote to the judge on the eve of his sentencing, how he detailed after leaving the CIA, he was re-enlisted to recruit private sector colleagues, even a CEO, to spy on foreign leaders and report back on international meetings. So he was being contracted to do other crazy stuff as well, and he felt honored to be trusted with that. Crazy. The Justice Department had Ball's letter sealed, insisting that it contained classified national security secrets. It remains publicly available through various court monitoring services where the Puck found it last week. It's unusual for the government to involve itself in civil cases. In searching the court records, they couldn't find a single other instance in which the Justice Department has gotten involved in a civil case over alleged classified information. Then again, this whole legal situation is undeniably wild and an absolute mess. This is like our Department of Justice, whichever side of the political spectrum you're in, has been weaponized many times over against politicians and presidents and political and now regular old journalists. Poor David and Ina Steiner, who were harassed and now are just trying to get civil restitution against eBay, civil payment from eBay for what they suffered, and now evidence of this guy's history and his past, even after he's been convicted and put in jail over what he did to them. The U.S. government is trying to silence whatever it is they have in those letters that they don't want anyone to know. The Steiners' lawsuit is essentially a racketeering case. It really is. They allege they were targeted because of their unflattering coverage, which definitely was. They remember the text messages that eBay was having. Ball, in his letter to the judge, expressed profound remorse for how he handled the matter. He only saw them as what the company wanted him to see, so he's kind of putting the blame back on eBay and essentially Devin Wenig, who has, of course, denied any knowledge of what they were going to do. Wenig, for his part, clearly wants to put the responsibility back on Ball since he's already in jail and has a pending motion to dismiss. Wenig, of course, trying to get himself out of it. But here's the part that's crazy, and this is where I'm going to leave this video out at the end and ask you your guys' comments on what you think about this whole mess. Not just the case before, but what I'm telling you right now, how the U.S. government is trying to silence information about one of these people that was involved in this, and it just doesn't make any sense why they would involve themselves. The Justice Department is pushing for a pretty broad protective order in Steiner versus eBay that would prevent the parties from delving into classified secrets and exploring the relationship between the co-defendants and the U.S. government. So they don't want them to know what his relationship was with the U.S. government, potentially the CIA. What's more, the DOJ is seeking the authority to review discovery materials before their public release and participate in depositions and potentially a trial. The government wants to be a part of this. This is crazy. Through negotiations, the government's demands have been somewhat narrowed after Wenig and eBay expressed their concerns, but the Steiners are still voicing objections. Of course they are. They want everything to be heard during this trial. Indeed, the Steiners are adamant about unsealing Ball's letters and argue that the government has misconstrued the importance of Ball's ties to the CIA, which they argue speaks to eBay's negligent hiring and supervision. In short, they want to know if eBay specifically employed Ball for his experience in covert ops. Of course they did. They knew his history. They knew what he had done. I guarantee you he probably bragged about what he had done in order to get the job. Those sorts of details might also undermine the contention that Ball was merely a rogue employee. Exactly. Instead of him just being a rogue employee, this would probably speak to the fact that he was hired for his exact ability to do the things that he had done, albeit unsuccessfully against the Steiners. Speaking of Ball, he's serving his sentence at the minimum security prison in the Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama. Same facility once held Enron's Jeffrey Skilling and Studio 54 founder Steve Rebel and other figures tied to the Watergate scandal. You can look that up if you don't know what it is. He couldn't be reached for comment, but court filings from his criminal case highlight why the Steiners are eager to talk with him free of constraints. At Ball's sentencing, memorandum puts it, indeed, reflecting a toxic culture that goes to the top of many technology companies, I can't talk today, sorry. Senior eBay executives hired Mr. Ball precisely because of his prior experience as a government security professional with a demonstrated ability to solve difficult problems through unconventional means. eBay hired a guy from the CIA to work for their head of security, global security team, and then, whether you believe it or not, in my opinion, Devin Wenig, eBay, whoever, instructed him, or he took it upon himself based on his job description to do what they did to the Steiners. Unbelievable. It goes so much deeper than we ever knew, and this story just blows my mind. I'm going to post this video and just leave it to you guys to leave the comments, because I cannot fathom a company hiring somebody to do what he did or to put him in a position to be able to do what he did based on his government contracts and government past and his CIA covert ops situation. Unreal. Anyways, I wonder how many other tech companies or big Fortune 50, 100, 500 companies have done similar things and had to like rein it in because they were like, oh crap, eBay got caught. We don't want to get caught. Leave it in the comment section below. As always, I appreciate you watching the videos. Hit the like button and subscribe to this channel, guys. I'll have more updates as this comes out and as it works its way through the court and Ina and David either settle or get a payment or it comes to a conclusion at trial. We'll have to wait and see how far it gets. But that's the story for today. Unbelievable update in that Ina Steiner versus eBay civil trial for the stalking and cyber harassment. Thank you, guys. As always, I appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video.